But the rise in tensions isn't helped by a Daily Mail exclusive that reveals thousands of migrants are using taxpayer handouts at casinos and betting shops.
Plus, Wandsworth Council in southwest London is now apparently offering a 50% e-bike discount to asylum seekers. So people who are having their claims processed, who haven't been granted asylum yet, you get a half-price Lime bike.
Is that the same Wandsworth Council that's raised council tax?
I imagine it probably is, yes.
Interesting. Well, joining us is the head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck. Elliot, let's start with this bizarre story about the sort of credit cards that are given to asylum seekers, presumably to buy food and essentials.
A debit card, surely?
Debit
Yeah,
card.
so the debit cards, essentially, they're called the Aspen card, and they get loaded with a certain amount on each week. It's £50 if you're in self-catered accommodation, or £10 if you're in bed and board, essentially if you have your 3 meals a day paid for. And you can't use it online. So there was a lot of cases of asylum seekers trying to use these cards online at betting shops and gambling, online casinos and the like, but they were all blocked because you can't use the card online. You can only use the card physically in person. But it does seem like there aren't proper checks and proper restraints on using these cards at, for example, in-person casinos, and 6,500 people have been able to use that. And I think, that's absolutely shocking. It's a complete misuse of taxpayers' money.
I mean, it is extraordinary, isn't it? These people are given money, presumably, in order to feed themselves and live and buy toothpaste or whatever else it is, although some of these hotels give that for free, of course. And they've got nothing to do all day because they're up in a hotel. They're not detained in any way. But while they're waiting the years-long process of getting processed, what are they doing with their time? They're going into betting shops in town centres and spending taxpayers' money there.
And, of course, as we know, a lot of them are actually working because things like Deliveroo, Uber Eats and Just Eats are being, very widely abused. People borrowing other people's apps. We know that 40% of delivery drivers that were stopped by the Home Office were found to actually be here illegally. I think what you're starting to see emerge is not just two-tier justice in this country, but actually almost a two-tier state and a two-tier access to services. Because, to throw in another example that we saw today, Lambeth Council, they provide a £100 grant for school uniform for asylum seekers, which doesn't sound necessarily unreasonable, but they also say on their website that for everybody else, there is no help for school uniform. So if you're a British citizen that's really hard up and you need that money for your school uniform, you don't get it. But if you're an asylum seeker, someone who's maybe arrived here illegally just in the last few months, you will get that £100 grant. So you throw in the Wandsworth story, Lambeth story, the fact you get free healthcare, eye care, dentist care, accommodation, you're starting to see a two-tier kind of state here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the argument would be that with the debit cards anyway, with the money being spent on betting shops, well, clearly that's a sign we're not giving them enough, Elliot.
Well, because they're having
to double their money, triple their money,
putting on the roulette. But, I don't see how the social contract can be maintained when tax-paying British citizens, their money is going essentially directly into the pockets and then directly into the casinos of people that many of whom arrived here illegally and many of whom shouldn't be here in the first place.
I mean, if it's not fraudulent, it does sound like it probably should be. That it
would worry me if it's not considered fraudulent. Yeah.
Because this is money specifically for them to be able to buy the essentials. But then, I suppose, if you get your free money and you blow it all in a gambling shop or whatever else you do, you can always go to a food bank and get your food for free.
Yeah, exactly. There will be a lot of charities that will be more than willing to help you out on that. A lot of them government-funded, of course.
Well, and that's just the cycle of things over and over
merry-go-round of
Do you foresee any issues with 50% off Lime bikes for asylum seekers? Presumably that will include some of the undocumented men in hotels.
Some of them maybe using them for their delivery services, and I'm sure we all know people that use Lime bikes to get to work and they have to pay through the nose in order to cover the cost of their commute, and yet many people who often have no right to be here and who entered the country illegally are getting 50% off.
I've often used a different service that does a deal. If you can get somewhere within 10 minutes, it's a lot cheaper.
That's so dangerous because silly men like you will just go as fast as possible.
This is exactly what I do.
Go straight through the red lights.
And I end up at the pub like a sweaty, sweltering
mess. You don't cycle home from the pub,
No, I'm cycling to the pub.
Do you cycle home from the pub?
Sometimes.
These are electric bikes, I think, though, so you have no excuse.
Shouldn't drink and cycle.
So I turn up there and I'm just racing to lock the bike so I'm within my 10-minute window so I get it super cheap.
Yeah.
I can imagine you sweating.
Meanwhile, these asylum seekers who get their half-price bikes, they're just having a leisurely cycle along.
No
to turn up at the pub and spend their free taxpayer debit card money. I mean,
I think the problem
this
is
the country we live
that
in.
more and more British people are clocking on to this,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
they're feeling a bit shafted. People at the lower end of the economic section, but also people who are paying lots of tax.
What are the big issues at the moment? People have unbelievably high rental costs, unbelievably high energy costs. They can't get a dentist. When they do, it's really, really expensive. And yet there is this class of people, recent arrivals, mostly arrived here illegally, many of whom have no real asylum claim, and yet they're getting access to all these things that now most Brits are really struggling to afford, and they're getting them for free.
Yeah, yesterday we heard from someone who was saying they were homeless in Tower Hamlets.
Yeah.
Next to that quite nice 4-star hotel that was requisitioned.
Yeah.
And you just see the contrast there. Someone just turns up on a beach and they get, you know, an air-conditioned hotel room in the middle of summer. And then you have someone sleeping outside that hotel who's lived here all her life.
We're supposed to not notice. We're supposed to not notice, or pretend that we've just got limitless resources for everyone, which apparently Keir Starmer thinks we do, because he thinks we've got enough houses for all the homeless and all the asylum seekers as well. But do we? Elliot Keck, thank you very much indeed. You're from the Taxpayers Alliance, the head of campaigns there.